The al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri has been killed in a drone strike in the Afghan capital of Kabul on the weekend. It is a blow to the Taliban, whose vow to not shelter militant groups has been exposed. Joining me live now is former CIA officer Ray McGovern. Ray, good morning to you. So let's start off with your reaction. What did you make of the strike on the weekend that took out the al-Qaeda leader?
Well, he was responsible for untold misery, so it's good that he's gone. But he was inconsequential. He was a has-been. He never was really able to take over for Osama bin Laden about 11 years ago. He's an old man, and most embarrassingly, he was killed at the home of Haqqani, who's de facto deputy chief of Afghanistan, for God's sake. So it's a little bit embarrassing that the Taliban is giving this kind of treatment to a fellow like Zawahiri. The announcement itself. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Well, I mean, as a former leader of al-Qaeda, though, or as the top dog in al-Qaeda, bin Laden's number 2, given what happened in 9/11, is it still a pretty decent mark from the US government to take him out of the picture?
Oh, sure it is. He was very prominent. My reaction was when I heard President Biden would be coming on TV last night was, oh, he's going to talk about Nancy Pelosi and perhaps war with China. Well, he mentioned that at all. What he mentioned was Zawahiri. Now, I see that as a classic deflection of attention from a real problem, an ability to claim some success and to say, well, in effect, I couldn't prevent the Speaker of the House from provoking China, but look what we did. We killed the number 2 in al-Qaeda. I see this timing as very, very odd. And of course, today with Pelosi in Taiwan, the Chinese have closed off 6 major areas to sea and air traffic. This episode is not over.
So what do you make of her being there? Should she be there?
No, it's a provocation. You know, we talk about Ukraine, and the White House claims that was unprovoked, what Putin did. Well, that's a lie. It was provoked for 10 years. Now, if the Chinese reply, as I think they will, with some rather strong military measures, will that be unprovoked? Sorry, it'll be provoked. And you know what? When NATO is inviting places like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and South Korea to attend and participate in NATO meetings, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, so, you know, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. The Chinese have the upper hand here. They have the next play, and I really shudder with respect to what it might be.
Does she not have a right to be there, though? She can go to Taiwan if she wants, and that has been said by John Kirby from the White House this morning.
Of course, but put yourself in Beijing, okay? You're Xi Jinping, a communist. Can you understand a government that can allow the Speaker of the House and have no power to say, no, please don't go. You're going to provoke the Chinese. They don't like this. Please don't go. It's not necessary. In other words, the Chinese can't bring themselves to believe that Biden could not have prevented it. And they are right. Biden could have prevented it, but he didn't want to seem soft on China with the midterm elections coming up in November.
What sort of a military response do you expect this to draw out from China?
Well, they're running these major exercises for the next 3 days. Now, you all in Australia will be close to them. You'll be able to see what the Chinese do. Now, they're famous for responding or retaliating in their own time. I don't think that it's going to be an immediate problem. I think Pelosi's got to get out of Taipei real quick before those restrictions are put into effect. But I think over the long term, this is really going to hurt not only the U.S.-Chinese relationship, but China's relationship with the rest of U.S. allies, particularly NATO, which now considers in a fundamental shift that China is now a systemic challenge, whatever that means. So all this is totally unnecessary. There's no threat from China that I can see for millennia. It has not invaded its neighbors. It wants to take care of the 1.4 billion people it has in its care, and China is doing a pretty good job of that. Most of this Chinese military activity should be viewed as a reaction to a provocation. Whatever happens is not going to be unprovoked.
Well, I mean, you would argue that with the fact that it's militarised the South China Sea. It said it wasn't going to do that to Obama, and it went and did that anyway. I mean, how is it provoked in that sense?
Well, it's the same as the Cuban Missile Crisis. We have totally militarized the Caribbean and Latin America. And when Khrushchev decided to put missiles in there, that was a provocation. And what do? We threaten nuclear war, for God's sake. Luckily, there were sane people. They worked it out. The Chinese look at this the same way. So do the Russians in Ukraine. These are unnecessary provocations, and they're done by, actually, I would say, not infantile, by adolescent policymakers like Jake Sullivan and Blinken, who really don't know much about history and certainly don't know much about the Chinese and the Russians.
I mean, but there's also, beyond that, there's economic coercion that has been forced upon countries around the world. It's got intention of setting up military bases. It's widely believed to set up military bases in the South Pacific, where we are at the moment, which is causing great concern. Do you not share those concerns?
Well, how many bases does the United States have in overseas countries? Count them. They're in the hundreds. So if China is developing islands, many of which they created in that kind of situation on their territory, it would seem to me it could be explained very easily by protecting the sea routes so that they get the oil and the other supplies that they need against the Seventh Fleet that keeps exercising in that area. It's a matter of tit for tat. And if I were a Chinese person, I would be very worried about these deployments that keep coming, these exercises that keep coming from the U.S. Seventh Fleet, and I would be trying to militarize that part of China that feels under threat from these kinds of maneuvers.
Ray McGovern, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks for your time this morning.